I should like to announce first, before introducing Derek Walcott, that immediately after the reading there will be refreshments for all, and all are invited upstairs in the penthouse on the top floor of the library. It's a great honor to be asked to introduce Derek Walcott. Derek Walcott was born in the Windward Islands and was educated at the University College of the West Indies. He published poems before he was 20, and he has since become a distinguished poet and playwright, teaching and directing plays as well. An early poem called A Map of the Antilles predicts Walcott's lifelong wish to explain the complexity of his origins and his country to people who saw the Antilles only as a place of simple tongues and customs. The relation between black and white, between colonized and colonizer, between Creole and the language taught in school, becomes for Walcott an aesthetic as well as a social problem. He looks for his aesthetic equally to the poets who have influenced him: Hopkins, Yeats, Eliot, Thomas, Auden, Lowell, and not only to those poets of the English and American language tradition, but he looks for his aesthetic also to the Benin bronzes. He wants, he says in a lovely poem, to find a style embodying his island truths, the sea crab's cunning, halting, awkward grace. Neither the topic of the traveler between countries and between cultures, nor the topic of the colonial predicament has disappeared from Walcott's later poetry, but his themes have, I think, diversified, and so has his style. The blacks and whites of argument, present especially in the early plays, having intermingled now to the stoic gray of an encumbered balance. Now, he says in one of the poems of Sea Grapes, I require nothing from poetry but true feeling, no pity, no fame, no healing. His powerful and bitter elegies for island life are rich with a tidal language. He has no patience for the poets of racial cliché. Most of our language loitered, he says in the preface to A Dream on Monkey Mountain, most of our language loitered in the pathos of sociology, self-pitying and patronized. But Walcott and his theater group in Trinidad considered illiteracy for what it was, a defect, as he says, not the attribute it is now considered to be by revolutionaries. In his forthcoming book, called, with some irony, I think, The Fortunate Traveler, Walcott is still, as he calls himself, a provincial elegist at the end of an empire. But he is also, as a man of many attachments and many losses, one with all exiled poets, whether Ovid writing the Tristia or Joseph Brodsky expelled from Russia. In the compact brilliance of aphorism, Walcott says that he finally prefers to be one of the races they fear and hate instead of one of the haters and afraid. And the aphorism compels assent. The other side of Walcott's fierce moral satire is his yearning for a cessation of hostilities, a wish for at least a season of what he calls, in the most beautiful poem, I think, of the new book, a season of phantasmal peace. In that lovely poem, groups of birds of different species join to cover, both with their wings and their multitudinous dialects, the whole earth, with a net of something brighter than pity for the wingless ones below them. This exquisite poem descends to us from Keats's Autumn Ode. And though neither poet places himself in so many words among the winged singers, as we read the poems, we find the poets there, drawing the bright net of language over us to momentary perfection. Derek Walcott.
The Schooner Flight. Adios, carronage. In idle August, while the sea soft, and leaves of dead islands stick to the rim of this Caribbean, I blow out the light by the dreamless face of Maria Concepcion to ship as a seaman on the Schooner Flight. Out in the yard, turning gray with the dawn, I turn to a stone, and nothing e'er move but the cold sea rippling like galvanized, and the nail holes of stars in the sky roof, till a wind start to interfere with the trees. I pass me dry neighbor, croaking her hymn to she coquille broom, and I nearly said, "Sweep soft, you witch, 'cause she don't sleep hard." But the bitch looked through me like I was dead. A route taxi pull up, park lights still on. The driver size up my bags with a grin. "This time, Shabin, like you're really gone." I answer the ass. I simply pile in the back seat and watch the sky burn above Laventille, as bright as the gown in which the woman I left was sleeping. And I look in the rear view and see a man exactly like me. And that man was weeping for the houses, the streets, that whole fucking island. Christ have mercy on all sleeping things. From that dog rotting down Wrightson Road to when I was a dog on these streets. If loving these islands must be my load, out of corruption my soul takes wings. But they had started to poison my soul with their big house, big car, big time bobble, coolie, nigger, Syrian, and French Creole. So I leave it for them and the carnival. I taken a sea bath. I gone down the road. I know these islands from Monos to Nassau. A rusty-haired sailor with sea-green eyes that they nickname Shabin, the patois for any red nigger. And I, Shabin, saw when these slums of empire was paradise. I'm just a red nigger who loved the sea. I had a sound colonial education. I have Dutch, nigger, and English in me, and either I am nobody or I'm a nation. But Maria Concepcion was all my thought, watching the sea breathing up and down as the right side of dories, schooners, and yachts was painted afresh by the strokes of the sun, signing her name with every reflection. I knew when dark-haired evening put on her soft silk at sunset, and folding the sea, sidled under the sheet with her starry laugh, that there'd be no rest, there'd be no forgetting. It's like telling mourners round the graveside about resurrection. They want the dead back. So I smiled to myself as the bow rope untied and the flight swings seaward. There's no use repeating that the sea have more fish. I ain't want her dressed in the sexless light of a seraph. I want those round brown eyes like a marmoset, until the day when I can lean back and laugh, those claws that tickled my back on sweating Sunday afternoons like a crab on wet sand. As I worked, watching the rotting waves come past the bow that scissor the sea like silk, I swear to all you, by my mother's milk, by the stars that shall fly from tonight's furnace, that I love them, my children, my wife, my home. I love them as poets love the poetry that kills them, as drowned sailors the sea. You ever look up from some lonely beach and see a fast schooner? Well, when I write this poem, each phrase will be soaked in salt. I go draw and knot every line as tight as ropes in this rigging. In simple speech, my common language go be the wind, my pages the sails of the Schooner Flight. But let me tell you how this business began. Smuggled scotch for O'Hara. Big government man between Cedros and the Main, so the Coast Guard couldn't touch us. And the Spanish pirogues always met us halfway. But a voice kept saying, "Shabin, see this business of playing pirate? Well, so said, so done. That whole racket crash, and I, for a woman, for her laces and silks, Maria Concepcion. Next thing I hear, some commission of inquiry was being organized to conduct a big quiz with himself as chairman investigating himself. Well, I knew damn well who the suckers would be, not that shark in shark skin, but his pilot fish, khaki pants, red niggers like you and me. What worse, I fighting with Maria Concepcion, plates flying and things, so I swear not again. It was mashing up my house and my family. I was so broke, all I needed was shades and a cup, or 4 shades and 4 cups, and fuck up Port of Spain. All the silver I had was the coins on the sea. You saw them ministers in the express, guardians of the poor, one hand at their back, and one set of police only guarding their house, and the scotch pouring in through the back door. As for that minister monster who smuggled the booze, that half Syrian saurian, I get so vexed to see that face thick with powder, the warts, the stone lids, like a dinosaur corked with primordial ooze by the lightning of flash bulbs sinking in wealth, that I said, Shabin, this is shit, understand? But he gets somebody to kick my crutch out his office like I was some artist. That bitch was so grand, couldn't get off his high horse and kick me himself. I have seen things that would make a slave sick in this Trinidad, this Limer's Republic. I couldn't shake the sea noise out of my head. The shell of my ears sang Maria Concepcion. So I start salvage diving with a crazy nickname O'Shaughnessy and a limey named Head. But this Caribbean, so choked with the dead, that when I would melt in emerald water whose ceiling rippled like a silk tent, I saw them corals, brain, fire, sea fans, dead men's fingers, and then the dead men. I saw that the powdery sand was their bones ground white from Senegal to San Salvador. So I panicked, third dive, and surfaced for a month in the seaman's hostel, fish broth and sermons. When I thought of the woe I had brought my wife, when I saw my worries with that other woman, I wept underwater, salt seeking salt. For her beauty had fallen on me like a sword, cleaving me from my children, flesh of my flesh. There was this barge from St. Vincent, but she was too deep to float her again. When we drank, the limey got tired of my sobbing for Maria Concepcion. He said he was getting the bends, good for him. The pain in my heart for Maria Concepcion, the hurt I had done to my wife and children was worse than the bends. In the rapturous deep, there was no cleft rock where my soul could hide like the boobies each sunset. No sandbar of light where I could rest like the pelicans know. So I got raptures once, and I saw God like a harpooned group of bleeding, and a far voice was rumbling, Shabin, if you leave her, I shall give you the morning star. When I left the madhouse, I tried other women. But once they stripped naked, their spiky cunts bristled like sea eggs, and I couldn't dive. The chaplain came around. I paid him no mind. Where is my rest place, Jesus? Where is my harbor? Where is the pillow I will not have to pay for, and the window I can look from that frames my life? I had no nation now but the imagination. After the white man, the niggers didn't want me when the power swing to their side. The first chained my hands and apologized, history. The next said I wasn't black enough for their pride. Tell me what power on these unknown rocks? A spray plane, Air Force, the fire brigade, the Red Cross, the regiment, 2-3 police dogs that passed before you finished bawling, parade. I met history once, but he ain't recognize me. A parchment Creole with warts like an old sea bottle, crawling like a crab through the holes of shadow cast by the net of a grill balcony. Cream linen, cream hat. I confront him and shout, Sir, is Shabin. They say I is your grandson. You remember grandma, your black cook at all? The bitch hawk and spat. A spit like that worth any number of words. But that's all them bastards have left us. words. I no longer believed in the revolution. I was losing faith in the love of my woman. I had seen that moment Alexander Bloch crystallize in the 12. Was between the police marine branch and the Hotel Venezuelana one Sunday at noon. Young men without flags, using shirts, their chests waiting for holes. They kept marching into the mountains, and their noise ceased as foam sinks into sand. They sank in the bright hills like rain, everyone with his own nimbus, leaving shirts in the street and the echo of power at the end of the street. Propeller blade fans turn over the Senate. The judges, they say, still sweat in carmine. On Frederick Street, the idlers are all marching by standing still. The budget turns a new leaf. In the 12:30 movies, the projectors best not break down or you go see revolution. Alexander Bloch enters and sits in the third row of pit, eating chocolate cone, waiting for a spaghetti western with Clint Eastwood and featuring Lee Van Cleef. The flight, passing Blanchisseuse. Dusk, the flight, passing Blanchisseuse. Gulls wheel like from a gun again, and foam gone amber that was white. Lighthouse and star start making friends. Down every beach the long day ends, and there, on that last stretch of sand on a beach bare of all but light, dark hands start pulling in the seine of the dark sea, deep, deep inland. Man, I brisk in the galley, first thing next dawn, brewing little coffee. Fog coil from the sea like the kettle steaming when I put it down slow, cause I couldn't believe what I see. Where the horizon was one silver haze, the fog swirl and swell into sails so close that I saw it was sails. My hair gripped my skull. It was horrors, but it was beautiful. We float through a rusting forest of ships with sails dry like paper. Behind the glass, I saw men with rusty eye holes like cannons, and wherever their half-naked crews crossed the sun, right through their tissue, you trace their bones like leaves against the sunlight. Frigates, barkentines, the backward moving current swept them on. And high on their decks, I saw great admirals, Rodney Nelson de Grasse. I heard the hoarse orders they gave their sharbines, and that forest of masts sail right through the flight. And all you could hear was the ghostly sound of wings rustling like grass in a low wind, and the hissing weeds they trailed from the stern. Slowly, they heaved past from east to west like this round world was some cranked water wheel, every ship pouring like a wooden bucket dredged from the deep. My memory revolved on all sailors before me. Then the sun heat the horizon's ring, and there was mist. Next, we pass slave ships, flags of all nations. Our fathers below deck too deep, I suppose, to hear us shouting. So we stop shouting. Who knows who his grandfather is, much less his name? Tomorrow, our landfall will be the Barbados. You see them on the low hills of Barbados, bracing like windbreaks, needles for hurricanes, trailing like masts the cirrus of torn sails. When I was green like them, I used to think those cypresses leaning against the sea that take the sea noise up into their branches are not real cypresses, but casuarinas. Now Captain just called them Canadian cedars. But cedars, cypresses, or casuarinas, whoever called them so had a good cause, watching their bending bodies wail like women after a storm when some schooner come home with news of one more sailor drowned again. Once the sound cypress used to make more sense than the green casuarinas, though to the wind, whatever grief bent them was all the same, since they were trees with nothing else in mind but heavenly leaping or to guard a grave. But we live like our names, and you would have to be colonial to know the difference, to know the pain of history words contain, to love those trees with an inferior love, and to believe those casuarinas bend like cypresses. Their hair hangs down in rain like sailors' wives. They're classic trees, and we, if we live like the names our masters please by careful mimicry, might become men. When the stars self were young, overcast trees, I loved you alone, and I love the whole world. What does it matter that our lives are different, burdened with the loves of our different children? When I think of your young face washed by the wind and your voice that chuckles in the slap of the sea, the lights are out on Latok Promontory except for the hospital. Across at VG, the marina arcs keep vigil. I have kept my own promise to leave you the one thing I own, you whom I loved first, my poetry. We here for one night. Tomorrow the flight will be gone. Fight with the crew. It had one bitch on board, like he had me mark. That was the cook. Some Vincentian ass with a skin like a gourmet tree and red peeling bark and washout blue eyes. He wouldn't give me a ease, like he feel he was white. Had an exercise book, this same one here that I was using to write my poetry, so one day this man snatched it from my hand and start throwing it left and right to the rest of the crew, bawling out, "Catch it!" and start mincing me like I was some hen because of the poems. Some cases for fist, some cases for tolling pin, some is for knife. This one was for knife. Well, I beg him first, but he keep reading, "Oh, my children, my wife," and playing he crying to make the crew laugh. It moved like a flying fish, this silver knife that catch him right in the plump of his calf, and he faints so slowly and he turned more white than he thought he was. I suppose among men, you need that sort of thing. It ain't right, but that's how it is. There wasn't much pain, just plenty blood. And Vincy and me best friend, but none of them go fuck with my poetry again. The jet that was screeching over the flight was opening a curtain into the past. Dominica ahead. It still have Caribs there. One day gonna be planes only, no more boat. Vince, God ain't make nigger to fly through the air. Progress, Shabin, that's what it's all about. Progress leaving all we small islands behind. I was at the wheel, Vince sitting next to me, gaffing, crisp, bracing day, a high running sea. Progress is something to ask Caribs about. They kill them by millions, some in war, some by forced labor, dying in the mines looking for silver. After that, niggers, more progress. Until I see definite signs that mankind change, Vince, I ain't want to hear. Progress is history's dirty joke. Ask that sad green island getting nearer. Green islands like mangoes pickled in brine. In such fierce salt, let my wounds be healed. That scar from the knife named Maria Concepcion. That night, with the sky sparks frosty with fire, I ran like a Carib through Dominica, my nose holes choked with memory of smoke. I heard the screams of my burning children. I ate the brains of mushrooms, the fungi of devil's parasols under white leprous rocks. My breakfast was leaf mold in leaking forests with leaves big as maps. And when I heard noise of the soldiers' progress through the thick leaves, though my heart was bursting, I got up and ran through the blades of balisier sharper than spears with the blood of my race. I ran, boy. I ran with moss-footed speed like a painted bird. Then I fall, but I fall by an icy stream under cool fountains of fern, and a screaming parrot catch the dry branches, and I drown at last in big breakers of smoke. Then when that ocean of black smoke passed and the sky turned white, there was nothing but progress, if progress is an iguana, as still as a young leaf in sunlight. I bawled for Maria and her book of dreams. It anchored her sleep, that insomniac's Bible, a soiled orange booklet with a cyclops eye center from the Dominican Republic. Its coarse pages were black with the usual symbols of prophecy in excited Spanish. An open palm, upright, sectioned and numbered like a butcher chart, delivered the future. One night in a fever, radiantly ill, she said, "Bring me the book. The end has come." She said, "I dreamt of whales and a storm, but for that dream, the book had no answer." And next night I dreamed of 3 old women, featureless as silkworms stitching my fate. And I scream at them to come out my house, and I try beating them away with a broom. But as they go out, so they crawl back again until I start screaming and crying, my flesh raining with sweat. And she ravaged the book for the dream meaning, but there was nothing. My nerves melt like a jellyfish. That was when I broke. They found me round the savannah, screaming. All you see me talking to the wind, so you think I'm mad. Well, Shabin has bridled the horses of the sea. You see me watching the sun till my eyeballs seared. So all you mad people feel Shabin crazy. But all you ain't know my strength here. The coconuts standing by in their regiments in yellow khaki, they waiting for Shabin to take over these islands. And all your best dread the day I am healed of being a human. All your fate in my hand, ministers, businessmen. Shabin, have your friend. I shall scatter your lives like a handful of sand. I who have no weapon but poetry and the lances of palms and the sea's shining shield. Next day, cold sea, a arse-aching dawn. Damn wind shift sudden like a woman mind. The slow swell start cresting like some mountain range with snow on the top. Hey, skipper, sky dark. This ain't right for August. This light damn strange. This season's sky should be clear as a field. A stingray steeplechase across the sea, tail whipping water. The high manor walls start reeling inland. Quick, an archery of flying fish miss us. Vince, you notice? And a black maned squall gallop towards us like a lion at a pigeon, and it catch the neck of the flight and shake it between its jaws. Be Jesus, I never see sea get so rough so fast. That wind come from God back pocket. Where Captain heading, like the man gone blind? If we's to drown, we go drown, Vince, fuck it. Shabin, say your prayers if life leave you any. I have not loved those that I loved enough. Worse than the mule kick of Kickham Johnny Channel, rain start to pelt the flight between mountains of water. If I was frightened, the 10 poles of water sprouts bracing the sky start wobbling, clouds unstitched at the seams, and sky water drench us. And I hear myself cry, I am the drowned sailor in that book of dreams. I remembered them ghost ships. I saw me corkscrewing to the seabed of sea worms, fathom past fathom, my jaw clenched like a fist, and only one thing hold me, trembling, how my family's safe home. Then a strength like it seized me, and the strength said, I from backward people who still fear God, let the Lord in his might heave Leviathan upward by the winch of his will, the beast pouring lace from his sea-bottom bed. And that was the faith that had faded from a child in the Methodist chapel in Chisel Street, Castries, when the whale bell sang service, and in hard pews, ribbed like the whale, proud with despair, we sang how our race survived the sea's maw, our history, our peril. And now I was ready for whatever death will. But if that storm had strength, was in Captain Face, bared, beading with spray, tears, salting his eyes, crucified to his post, that nigger hold fast to that wheel man like the cross hold Jesus, and the wounds of his eyes like they crying for us, and I feeding him white rum while every crest with Leviathan lash make the flight quail like two criminal, whole night with no rest, till red-eyed like dawn, we watch our travel subsiding, subside, and there was no more storm, and the noon sea get calm as thy kingdom come. There's a fresh light that follows a storm, while the whole sea still havoc. In its bright wake, I saw the veiled face of Maria Concepcion marrying the ocean and drifting away in the widening lace of her bridal train with gulls for her bridesmaids till she was gone. I wanted nothing after that day. Like my own face, across the face of the sun, a light rain was falling with the sea calm. Fall gently, rain, on the sea's upturned face like a girl showering. Make these islands fresh as Sabine once knew them. Let every trace, every hot road smell like clothes she just press and sprinkle with drizzle. I finish dream. Whatever the rain wash and the sun iron, the white clouds, the sea and sky with one seam is close enough for my nakedness. Though my flight never passed the incoming tide of this inland sea beyond the loud reefs of the final Bahamas, I am satisfied if my hand gave voice to one people's grief. Open the map. More islands there, man, than peas on a tin plate, all different size. 1,000 in the Bahamas alone, from mountains to low scrub with coral keys. And from this bowsprit I bless every town, bays, the blue smell of smoke in hills behind them, and the one small road winding down them like twine to the roofs below. I have only one theme, the bowsprit, the arrow, the longing, the lunging heart, the flight to a target whose aim we'll never know. Vain search for one island that heals with its harbor and a guiltless horizon where the almond's shadow doesn't injure the sand. There are so many islands as the stars at night on that branched tree from which meteors are shaken like falling fruit around the Schooner Flight. But things must fall, and so it always was. On one hand, Venus, on the other, Mars. Fall and are one, just as this earth is one island in archipelagos of stars. My first friend was the sea, now is my last. I stop talking now, I work, then I read, couching under a lantern hooked to the mast. I try to forget what happiness was, and when that don't work, I study the stars. Sometimes it's just me and the soft scissored foam as the deck turn white and the moon open a cloud like a door, and the light over me is a road in white moonlight taking me home. Sabine sang to you from the depths of the sea. I never thought I'd come to live in Boston. I first came here with Lowell, who was a good friend. It's an elegy for Lowell. As for that other thing which comes when the eyelid is glazed and the wax gleam from the unwrinkled forehead asks no more questions of the dry mouth, whether they open the heart like a shirt to release a rage of swallows, whether the brain is a library for worms, on the instant of that knowledge of the moment when everything became so stiff, so formal, with ironical adieu, organ and choir, and I must borrow a black tie, and at what moment in the oration shall I break down and weep? There was the startle of wings breaking from the closing cage of your body, your fist unclenching, those pigeons circling serenely over the page. And as the parentheses lock like a gate, 1917 to 1977, the semicircles close to form a face, a world, a wholeness, an unbreakable O. And something that once had a fearful name walks from the thing that used to wear its name, transparent, exact representative, so that we can see through it churches, cars, sunlight, and the Boston Common, not needing any book. Old New England. Black clippers, tarred with whale's blood, fold their sails entering New Bedford, New London, New Haven. A white church spire whistles into space like a swordfish. A rocket pierces heaven as the thawed springs and icy chevrons race down hillsides, and old glories flail the crosses of green farm boys back from Nam. Seasons are measured still by the same span of the veined leaf and the veined body. Whenever the spring wind startles an uproar of marching oaks with memories of a war that peeled whole counties from the calendar. The hillside is still wounded by the spire of the white meeting house. The Indian trail trickles down it like the brown blood of the whale in rowan berries, bubbling like the spore on logs burnt black as Bibles by hellfire. The war whoop is coiled tight in the white owl, stone-feathered icon of the Indian soul, and railway lines are arrowing to the far mountain-wide absence of the Iroquois. Spring lances wood and wound, and a spring runs down tilted birch floors with their splintered suns of beads and mirrors, broken promises that helped make this republic what it is. The root of our conviction is not loud like the spring oaks, but still sings, reassured that God is meek, but keeps a whistling sword. His harpoon is the white lance of the church, his wandering mind a trail folded in birch, his rage the vats that held the melted beast, as the black clippers bring, knotting each shroud round the cross trees, our son's home from the east. Rhys. The only comment I'll make is I find it a little tough, a little ironical to see in the New York Times from Rhys's great novel, and Maggie Smith and Alan Bates and who else are there, and this woman almost died in complete obscurity. It's funny how these, what kind of thing fame is. In their faint photographs, mottled with chemicals, like the left hand of some spinster aunt, they have drifted to the edge of verandas in Whistlerian white, their jungle turned tea-brown, even its spiked palms, their features pale to be penciled in. Bone-collared gentlemen with spiked mustaches and their wives, embayed in the wickerwork armchairs, all looking colored from the distance of a century beginning to groan sideways from the axe stroke. Their bay horses blackened like spaniels, the front lawn a beige carpet, brown moonlight, and a moon so sallow, so pharmaceutical, that her face is a feverish child's, some malarial angel whose grave still cowers under a fury of bush, a mania of wild yams wrangling to hide her from ancestral churchyards. And the sigh of that child is white as an orchid on a crusted log in the bush of Dominica, a V of Chinese white meant for the beat of a seagull over a sepia souvenir of Cornwall, like the white hush between two sentences. Sundays, their furnace of boredom after church. A maiden aunt canoes through lilies of clouds in a Carib hammock to a hymn's metronome. And the child on the varnished, lion-footed couch sees the hills dip and straighten with each lurch. The green-leaved uproar of the century turns dim as the Atlantic, a rumorous haze behind the lime trees, breakers advancing in decorous pleated lace. The cement grindstone of the afternoon turns slowly, sharpening her senses. The bay below is green as Callaloo, stewing sargasso. In that fierce hush between Dominican mountains, the child expects a sound from a butterfly clipping itself to a bush like a gold earring to a black maid's ear. One who goes down to the village visiting, whose pink dress wilts like a flower between the limes. There are logs wrinkled like the hand of an old woman who wrote with a fine courtesy to that world when grace was common as malaria. When the gas lanterns hiss and the veranda drew the ants out like moths doomed to be pressed in a book, to fall into the brown oblivion of an album, embroiderers of silence, for whom the arches of the Thames, Parliament's needles, and the pity point reflections of London Bridge fade on the hammock cushions from the sun, where one night a child stares at the windless candle flame from the corner of a lion-footed couch at the erect white light, her right hand married to Jane Eyre, foreseeing that her own white wedding dress will be white paper. Finally, season of phantasmal peace. The line multitudinous dialects is obviously from Meredith, from Modern Love. When certain things are in poems, they are not thefts, they are acknowledgements, they are homages, and one hopes that people understand that. I tossed with the idea of trying to lessen the line. Obviously, I couldn't come up with anything better than Meredith, so I left it in. Then all the nations of birds lifted together the huge net of the shadow of this earth in multitudinous dialects, twittering tongues, stitching and crossing it. They lifted up the shadows of long pines down trackless slopes, the shadows of glass-faced towers down evening streets, the shadow of a frail plant on a city sill, the net rising soundless as night, the birds' cries soundless, until there was no longer dusk or season, decline or weather, only this passage of phantasmal light that not the narrowest shadow dared to sever. And men could not see, looking up, what the wild geese drew, what the ospreys trailed behind them in silvery ropes that flashed in the icy sunlight. They could not hear battalions of starlings waging peaceful cries, bearing the net higher, covering this world like the vines of an orchard, or a mother drawing the trembling gauze over the trembling eyes of a child fluttering to sleep. It was a light that you will see at evening on the side of a hill in yellow October, and no one hearing knew what change had brought into the raven's cawing, the kildare's screech, the ember circling chuff, such an immense, soundless and high concern for the fields and cities where the birds belong, except it was their seasonal passing love made seasonless, or, from the high privilege of their birth, something brighter than pity for the wingless ones below them who shared dark holes in windows and in houses. And higher they lifted the net with soundless voices, above all change, betrayals of falling suns. And this season lasted one moment like the pause between dusk and darkness, between fury and peace. But for such as our earth is now, it lasted long. Thank you.